There's a divide between men and women that just seems to be getting larger and larger. Men who value women are called simps by other men. Women who are independent are called overly masculine. And women are left to wonder, what does it take for me to have a happy and healthy relationship that honors myself and men? So I have a special guest today, a return guest for this 100th episode of the Secret Formula of Femininity. And we're going to talk deeper about what men and women are missing about each other and why the name calling, the generalizations, the talking across and at each other is not getting us what we want. I think you guys know my stance. Men and women need each other. And actually, we're always going to desire each other. We're always going to be together. But how can we do it in a way that's healthier and that serves us? And ladies, I'm talking to you. That's why I brought back this amazing guest to talk also from the male perspective. So we're going to dig into all of this. Stay tuned for the secret formula of femininity. Welcome to the Secret Formula of Femininity for women who want to live a more feminine, fun, and fabulous life. I'm Dr. Nicole Montero, your host on this weekly journey to unlocking your inner radiance, nurturing fulfilling relationships, and becoming the best version of Welcome back, everybody, not just to another episode, but to the 100th episode of the Secret Formula of Femininity podcast. I first want to just say thank you so much for wherever you join on this journey, for rocking with me this long, taking in the insights, supporting the podcast, and really supporting the amazing guests that I have had on all of these episodes. This is transitioning us into season 4, and we're digging even deeper into relationships. Not just the theory, not just the talking points and the name calling, because quite honestly, a lot of that is coming from people who aren't in successful relationships. They have all the talking points, but we want to go deeper into what does it take to find a relationship, sustain a relationship, communicate in a relationship, have desire in a relationship, and all the things. So I've said enough, and I want to just say welcome to Brother Habeeb Akande. Thank you so much for coming back on the platform. And before you start, can I just tell the people a little bit about you? You have an extensive resume. Habeeb Akande is a British Nigerian sex educator, historian, and erotologist. Okay, keep that word in mind. He's a best-selling author of 7 published books on sexual pleasure and African history. His main research interests include female pleasure in Islam and African cultures. He's a public speaker, cross-cultural sex expert. I know you've done your workshops all over South America, the UK, the US, and so forth. His book was featured in the BBC documentary The Orgasm Gap, which explored teaching female pleasure in Rwanda in the UK. He's a chartered accountant by profession and a former student of Islamic law at Al Azhar University in Egypt. Thank you so much, Habeeb. And I know your work spans way beyond the resume that I read, but that's just to give a little background. So welcome, Habeeb. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm amazing. Thank you very much for inviting me, Dr. Nicole. Hopefully, it's going to be a fruitful discussion. You missed one thing in
Okay.
terms of you mentioned me being a sex educator, erotologist. I thought you was going to mention me being an international simp because apparently that's my new name. I've been crowned by some brothers. I'm
Yeah.
not a simp, by the way, but we can get into that.
We are going to dig straight in. So, you may or may not know Habeeb holds the brothers accountable. He talks to men as if, hey, he is the one letting you know what you are doing wrong to women. And I'd like to think that I talk to women directly and clearly. But yes, one of the things you have been called is simp. I didn't know they put the international on it. So, international simp. So let's dig into that. What is the feedback that you get? Because obviously you're a educator. You talk about sexual pleasure for women and men. And so it looks like you're trying to bring people together, but some people don't like what you're saying. Who are they and why?
Where do you start? I think I put more emphasis on teaching men or encouraging men to ensure that their partners, their wives are sexually satisfied. So I'll put more emphasis on teaching female pleasure as opposed to male pleasure, because I think for men, generally speaking, it's quite easy for us to get off. Whereas I think many of us as men, we're quite selfish in the bedroom, and maybe we're not attentive to our partner's needs. So that's why I place more emphasis in teaching men to ensure that their wives are entitled to pleasure, as well as helping women understand that they're also entitled to pleasure. Because of that, there are some brothers who are upset with my message. Some of them feel that I'm I'm placing too much priority or too much emphasis on women, and I should be criticizing women for not being obedient, submissive wives as they expect. And I'm also not calling out women for certain things like the way I call out men. And one thing I'm very strong on and I have zero tolerance for is where anyone, male or female, but I find this more with men, will use religion to justify sexual misconduct or sexual misbehavior, whether it's in the form of like spiritual abuse or religious manipulation or weaponizing certain Islamic texts.
Mm,
That's something that I've got very zero tolerance for. So I do call, not individually, but I'll call out the practices and help people realize, that women realize some of like the tactics that unfortunately some so-called religious people do. So that's something that some men are not really happy that I talk about that a lot. So that's why I've been labeled a simp. And
okay.
I've been labeled a simp by a number of people. When I asked them, like, okay, tell me, what is a simp? One brother said, it's a woman pleaser. So I said, okay, what's wrong with that?
That sounds very masculine, right? Somebody who
So
likes
I'd
to
rather
please
be,
women. Yeah.
yeah, I said, I'd rather be a woman pleaser than a man pleaser. So I said, oh, so are you a man pleaser? He didn't know what to say. I think he wanted to fight me, but then we changed the subject. Yeah, I think it's some of the brothers, but I've had more detailed conversation with brothers in that regard, and what they've said, and I'm trying to take their criticism on board because I've heard this from a number of people,
Mhm.
is that they've said that I I post or I speak too much about male misbehavior as opposed to female misbehavior. That's what they've said. And I said,
Okay.
okay, can you give me an example? And then one of the brothers said, okay, you don't talk about or you don't call out women who are not letting um, their ex-husbands or ex-partners see their children. And I was like, okay, that's a fair criticism.
Parental alienation. Uh-huh.
Yeah, parental alienation. I said that does happen, but the remit of my work as a sex educator and erotologist, that doesn't fall within my work. So that's one of the reasons why I don't talk about it. But in terms of like false allegations and honey trap, I do talk about that, but maybe I don't talk about that as much as maybe some male misbehavior. But I said those criticisms in terms of maybe calling out female misbehavior, that which is related to intimacy and sexual related matters, fair enough. I said I can maybe talk about that a bit more, but generally speaking, is it men or women? And 9 out of 10 of the brothers, they all say we know it's men. So I said, okay, if that's the case, surely that's why I'm going to have more emphasis or speak more about helping men, that we need to do better. It's not about blaming women. It's not about blaming the devil. It's not about blaming Western society. I'm saying we as men need to do better. I
Yeah.
speak a lot about accountability, and for us as men to practice sexual discipline. That for me, that should be a trait that we should embody and see as a virtue, not looking, not looking at that. Oh, wait, we as men, we're weak. We can't control ourselves, because a lot of brothers will make so many excuses to kind of step out of their relationship or their marriage,
Mhm.
and it's like, rather than looking at like the way you
Looking within.
are, looking within, and you take pride in being disciplined and being strong with so many things, like in terms of your finances, going to the gym and being physically strong. But when it comes towards to your sexuality, for whatever reason, a lot of men respect sexually indisciplined men. They respect men being weak, meaning if a woman, beautiful woman, came across their path, they couldn't resist, they couldn't say no. And I'm saying, where do you
But do
get that
you
from? Because
think
that's
it's
not.
yeah, do you I mean, that's a lot, first of all. I appreciate your willingness to put yourself out there and be attacked because you're trying to get a message across. But when the last thing you said, I was wondering, like, when you said men will value discipline in so many areas, but then when it comes to sexual discipline, they almost admire not being disciplined. Do you think it has to do with that's a sign that they're desired? Like if they step out with a beautiful woman or whatever it is, they go with multiple women, that's the symbol of their desirability or their virility. So they're actually thinking that is what makes them more masculine.
Could you repeat that last bit of your question? I think it cut out a little bit on my side.
Yeah, do you I wonder if men, as you observe it, valuing indiscipline when it comes to, like, sexual discipline, it's because that's a show of their desirability or their virility or their sexual prowess, which they equate with their masculinity.
You know, 100%. That yes, I agree. But then the problem is that masculinity of a human being or is that masculinity of an animal, of a dog?
Mm, mhm.
That's our challenge. I had that mindset as well. I mean, yes, to be a womanizer, to sleep around, to have multiple women. For someone
You
who
had that
is
mindset.
sorry?
You had that mindset before.
Yeah, I had that mindset.
Tell us
That's why
about that and how you transitioned, yeah.
well, I had a number of really strong role models in terms
Mhm.
of like my father and men around who would call out that type of behavior. So whilst amongst my friends, I can brag about that type of behavior and trying to get girls and X, Y, and Z. I know that I couldn't bring that behavior around to men that I respect.
Okay.
So I knew that even though amongst my peers, that was something that was praiseworthy and something that was, you know, a type of masculinity, but amongst men that actually respect, that wasn't something that I could even I could even boast about because it wasn't something to be prideful of.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
I think, and that's where I mean we all have role models, and even when I'm speaking to brothers, I always mention, okay, who's your sexual role model? Not in terms of someone you obviously want to have relations with, but someone that you respect in terms of how they are as a man around the women and with women. Like if I'm speaking to Muslims, I'll use the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as an example. Now, if we're using him as an example, he wasn't someone who couldn't control his desires. He wasn't
Mm,
someone who, if he saw an attractive woman, he would want to go and sleep with her. So I'm saying to then I would challenge their version or their understanding of masculinity. And real masculinity is that yes, you may have the desire for someone, but being able to control it, that's a higher station. Now, if you're looking at masculinity in a very frivolous way, or like from the perspective of an animal,
superficial. Uh-huh.
superficial hyena, and I did mention in one of my books that there's two types of men when it comes to women, generally speaking, like in
Yeah.
terms of womanizers, you have men who are like lions, and you have men who are like hyenas. And a
Mhm.
lion is someone sexually disciplined, someone who controls himself and is very selective with who he chooses as his mate. Whereas a hyena is like a scavenger.
Yeah.
Anyone he can sleep with, he will sleep with. Now, generally speaking, no one respects a hyena. And men who feel that, okay, the more women I sleep with, and if I can sleep with any woman who puts herself in front of me, I'm going to take it, so to speak. That shows you that you're quite low value as a person when you actually reflect upon it. And I think
Yeah.
men they realize it, but what happens is when you're in the echo chamber or the WhatsApp groups or the boys group, you egg each other on. You egg each
No,
other on.
I guess this is my thing is, like, are
Married men
married.
is this is the problem. What happens with married men, especially Muslim married men,
Mhm.
they try and justify this behavior in the terms of, oh, Islam allows me to marry up to 4 wives, so I can just take
Yeah.
a second wife, even if it's going to this. But they're not thinking about, okay, but this can destroy what you built with your first marriage. This can destroy your children.
You
They're not
take 3
thinking
from
that
here and put yeah. Mhm.
because they're thinking like in the echo chamber amongst men, they're just patting him on the back, like, yeah, just go and get another woman. Yeah, you've got 2 wives, you've got 3 wives, because that's what men boast about. So amongst, you could say, people that are non-religious, they might boast about having multiple sexual partners. Amongst people who are quote unquote religious or Muslim, they will boast, not all of them, but they might boast that I've got multiple wives. But it's still the same game. They're not talking
Yeah.
about I've got multiple wives, meaning I'm looking after them, I'm taking care of them. It's
I have
not really what
multiple
they're saying.
sexual partners.
Essential partners.
Yeah.
That's what it
Yeah.
says. When people say polygamy, when you hear a lot of Muslims, even some imams and preachers, when they're saying polygamy, they really talk about promiscuity, halal promiscuity.
Mhm.
And when
Mhm.
they're talking about wives, they're talking about sexual partners. So again, it's just the same rhetoric, but they're just using different terms. And that's kind of like what I'm kind of calling out. Like, let's just call it for what it is. Because amongst, I would say, non-religious or non-Muslim people, I think there's a bit more integrity in the sense of they know what they're doing. Whereas I think sometimes in certain religious circles amongst the brothers, they're using the religion to justify womanizing, sleeping
Yeah,
around,
and
and
they don't see it. They're not igno I hear what you're saying is like, if you're gonna be promiscuous, call a thing, do it. Hey, it is what it is. But versus trying to dress it up as this virtuous thing that
exactly.
you're doing. Yeah. But it's you said hyena. I hear that term in the female space where there's the lioness and then there's the hyena who again doesn't she lacks discipline, but in a different way, doesn't have discernment, doesn't have a sense of her own standards and values, and is kind of lowering herself either through multiple kind of sexual relationships or just behaviors that are not becoming. So that is so interesting that you talk about that as male hyenas who are the opposite of the lions. But I want to ask you because you have the perspective since you used to be like that or you had that way of kind of seeing women in relationships. What do women really need to understand about men and how to discern or how to, because we're constantly telling women, men and women are telling women, you need to choose better. You need to respect yourself. You need to have standards. But what do women need to understand about the male psyche, masculinity, men that will even help them to quote, choose better?
I would say for men who are not intentionally going out of the way to lie and manipulate women, because that is very difficult. If someone's coming to you and saying all the right things, but they've got
Hmm.
a different intention, there's no way you could know. So you can't fault or blame any woman in that regard.
Hmm.
But there are a number of men who are quite, and I was also quite transparent and clear in terms of what my intentions were. Like, I wasn't
Okay.
looking for anything serious. I'm only here for like a short time or a good time, so to
Uh-huh.
speak. Whereas a number of women I've come across, and still there's women who will think that they can change men. And I think that's
Mm.
quite dangerous.
Okay.
That's quite
Okay.
dangerous because if
I
someone's
need you to
shown you,
say that again. So you can't change a man. Is that what you're
you
saying?
can't change it. And I think some women feel that, I don't know how to describe it, but they feel that they are so good that once he gets with her, he's going to change and stop being the playboy womanizer that he used to be. Well, and even if he's told her this is what I'm about, she thinks that she's got something special that he's all of a sudden going to change,
Uh-huh.
and that doesn't always happen. Most times, 9 times out of 10, he's not going to. A man changes when he's ready to change.
Okay.
And I think it's important that women realize that, because if she's talking to a man or dating a man or interacting with a man that he's in a position in his life where he's not ready to settle down, but she wants to settle down, her thinking that, okay, if she gets with him, he gives, she gives him like wifey treatment, whatever, he's going to change his ways. Maybe for a short period of time, but not really. But he by that same man, and this does happen, when he wants to change, he does change and he's ready to
Uh-huh.
be, committed and faithful and all the rest of it. And then he's that man with another woman. And then she might blame herself. And it's nothing to do
Yes.
with the woman. It's just that that's not where he was at that stage in life. And that's also something that I think some women find it difficult to grapple with, is that you could be one way in terms of
Mhm.
a man, and then a few years later, you're not that person anymore. Like, you're not interested in that life at all. But it's not because of the woman, it's because you didn't want to be that. You don't
Yes.
want to
Yeah.
continue that person. So I think it's important that what is that saying? When someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think oftentimes, and I hate this because sometimes women, the face that a woman will show her partner or the man she's speaking to is different to the woman she would be vulnerable with when she's telling her girls. So when
Mm.
she's telling her girls, it might be, oh, he did this to me, he led me on, X, Y, and Z. Whereas the man was very clear cut in
Yeah.
terms of what he's looking for in terms of this like interaction, this relationship, like nothing too serious. But that's not what she's told her girlfriends, I would say.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
and men do this as well, it happens both ways. But I think, like, the same way a lot of women will say to men, you don't know how your boys are like when they're with her.
Mhm.
Likewise, a lot of women, they don't know how their girlfriends are like when they're with a man.
Yeah, yeah. So when people
And
are saying, "Oh, she's a wonderful woman. How can he do this? She's this and that." You don't know what took place within that relationship.
yeah, and there are some women who, they're very nice and pleasant to their girlfriends and in public, but in a relationship, they're horrible.
Yeah,
There's some women
yeah.
that's, and I think sometimes people find it very difficult to admit or to face. And I think generally speaking, men, we will cover up the faults of women that we've been in a relationship with. Men generally
Mm.
don't go out and talk about the bad experiences they've had with a woman, whether
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
physical abuse, whether it's verbal abuse, really vicious thing. And some women have a tongue, and this is women across the board. That not
Yeah.
all, but some can be. Like I've had like sessions with speaking to brothers, even brothers I'm really close with, that one particular scenario where the wife complained to me about what her husband was doing,
Mhm.
and she wanted me to speak to her husband because we're relatively
Okay.
close. Usually I don't speak to my friends about their relationship. I don't get involved. He then just said to me, "Do you know what? I'm glad she actually said you to speak to me." Then he told me the other side, and it was because I went in ready to attack him, and he told me what he's gone through for the past like
Uh-huh.
6 or 7 years.
Yeah,
And generally speaking, men are not going to tell that, even though I knew him, he wouldn't tell me that information.
yeah,
It's only because like she prompted him by telling me to speak to him. And then when I saw the other side, I was like, okay, okay, I can see it's not as straightforward as the way she presented it. But the way
yeah.
she presented the situation to me, it's like I was ready to fight him.
And you know that Habib, I love that you said that because I think both sides need to hear this. And this is something I see as a couples therapist. And actually, a lot of times, both the men and women are so grateful when I'm working with them, the male and the female are glad that I am so neutral that I can see the whole thing and reflect back. Because a lot of times the men come in thinking, well, this is a female therapist. She's just going to be like all girl power and rah, rah, rah. And I'm like, no, I really don't have a position until I hear both sides. And I usually can see the contribution of both. But one thing that I see with a lot of women, some women that I've worked with in relationship, is the part of the tongue, the tone. And what I've observed just professionally, personally, is that respect is so important for men, and one of the ways that that's conveyed is in how you talk to a man, how you talk to anybody, but in particular, and I don't know if, if ladies, if you really grasp that you could say something with just a look or like almost like how a snake's tongue goes out, and you'll see that man just shut down or be mad. Something shifts within him.
And especially when a woman knows his trigger points.
Mm.
And that's the thing, because and that's something that, like what you're saying about the tongue, only those two individuals will know. Because outside, like the way she might relate the story, they just had the argument, they had a fight.
Mhm, mhm.
Whereas what she's saying and how she's getting under his skin and the things that she's saying, it cuts deep. And it's very difficult for a man, especially like you mentioned, which is I wholeheartedly agree. For a lot of men, it's all about respect. When a woman says certain things that she knows what she's saying and undermining him, it cuts so deep. It's very difficult for him to see her the same again. And I
Yeah.
don't know if women are aware of that, but sometimes they do it in like maybe a vindictive way to kind of get back at
Mm.
him.
Mhm.
It's something that as men, that's something we do talk about, but we don't go into too much detail in terms of our partners, but it's like a shared experience that we all know.
Okay, and what do
But
you guys say? How do you know that that's what how does it come up in the group chats?
how does it come up?
Like, what do you say? Like, "Oh, she did that. Her tongue was sharp," or like, what do you guys say?
Generally, what guys would do is that we wouldn't talk about the lady that we're with.
Uh-huh.
So we'll talk about past experience, but it might even include the lady that we're with.
Okay,
Because it
but
also
trying to be protective.
trying to be protective.
Uh-huh.
If we're going for a difficult spot, we won't talk about the lady that we're with, but we'll talk about either the past or we know how women can be. So we kind of use that third party language, so to speak. But we talk about like it's something that all men know, and I think and it's like it's a thing because you've experienced it. You know that so many other people are saying it's just validating what you've experienced. And
Yeah.
again, it could be and again, it's not trivial things like about cooking. It was like some women have said things about your your mum, which cuts extremely deep.
Mm. Like
Where
mama's
your
boy or
no, not even mum's, but your mum's a bitch. Yeah, and these are some. If you see the women, they look very innocent, and this and that that you would that bar wouldn't melt. Yeah, and then like about you know, I, I've heard this. Unfortunately, I've not been in a relationship with a woman that said this to me, but I've heard this a number of times where women have said that I wish I never, met you. I wish I met. I was
mm.
with your friend or such and such person, and that is something that is really difficult for a man to forgive.
Is
Comparing a
that
man to someone else, like you
okay?
destroyed my life. I wish I never met you.
Okay.
It's these type of things that again is quite it's quite difficult to overcome. But then also then because I think when men get together, we hear this. Sometimes we can just be like, okay, that's not in a bad way, but that's just the way some women are. So you kind of just like you brush it off, so you don't take it personally.
So I hear you saying like he's trying not to take it personally, but then if it doesn't get addressed, I would imagine that kind of festers.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
And then this is where the whole manosphere red pill is extremely dangerous because they serve like as a vacuum
Okay.
to all of these male grievances. They will talk about it, and so the men feel validated. Like I've gone through this, yeah, but then
Yeah.
they'll give like a solution that is not that's quite destructive. To be fair, and
And the
that's the problem.
solution being
Get rid of her, go and sleep around, find another woman. This
yes.
that, like rather than working on a relationship, rather than finding someone like yourself who's qualified as a therapist to try
Yeah.
and solve those relationship issues. Because also as well, sometimes it's not good to speak to another man because he will talk about, yeah, my girlfriend or my wife did this to me. They're all like that. It's like, no, you
Yeah.
need to maybe hear an empathetic voice. It might be from another man or go to
Yeah.
a qualified person, or even like a woman. It doesn't mean because of what, like you said, that a woman is a woman, she's going to side with your wife or girlfriend. That's not always the case. You need to go to professional. But then, like I said, the manosphere has been quite destructive in because a lot of men that's now where they go for like relationship issues or social media influencers where you
Yeah.
have people who are without saying any names like life coaches and what especially the women life coaches but present themselves as like doctors. They will
Yeah.
just regard male talking points, so that's what the men will use, that this is how you should be,
Uh-huh.
not realize that that woman or talking is just a grifter and she's
Yeah.
just saying what she knows
She's
what men
giving
want to hear.
soundbite. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
giving sound bites. So that's
Yeah.
also, I think having, and I think we did speak about this previously, but having a space where men can feel that they can speak to like a professional, I think that's something that I think it's very difficult for men to acknowledge and maybe admit that they might need some assistance because we're very, we're very egotistical. We don't
Yeah.
want to feel
Yeah.
be vulnerable especially in front of someone that we don't know. So, um,
'Cause how you're meant what I have observed, and I think what you're saying is so powerful because I literally observe it, but the way you're describing it, because men, once their ego is bruised, this is my observation. It's very because of how men are socialized and the expectations from men and women. Again, not to be a simp, there's really not a place, and I think all of us, when we get that righteous hurt, we look for others that just validate it. So the other men, the red pill or whatever, are gonna be like, yeah, women are this and that. And what I see from the women's side is when we go through our traumas and we have our daddy wounds and mommy wounds, we look for validation, which is great. But that validation often encourages us to separate from to not work on building relationships. I guess they're both doing the same thing, basically. They're each encouraging each other to just go to their corners, pout, be mad, and talk about how the other one
but
basically is
but I would
garbage.
but I will say someone said this to me 6 months ago. She said that how did she word it? I was so shocked. She said that she didn't believe that men. She said something where she didn't believe that men love women. She believed only women love men.
Really? Now, was this in like, I'm so curious about that.
Yeah,
Just because
she
I
said,
know that not to be true. Uh-huh.
yeah, and it's definitely not true,
Yeah,
but she
that's
said
so
that
interesting.
that men do not have the capability and do not love women. It's only women that love. And I was like, where are you getting that from? And I think what it was, because she was going through a difficult
Yeah,
situation in marriage, she just couldn't understand that the way her husband communicated or professed love, like his love language was different to hers. So
yeah,
just for a case of understanding that the things that he's doing, he's showing his love for you, but maybe that's not the love language that is, maybe it's not your love language, you don't understand it. It's not so it's not a case of he doesn't love you, because when I was explaining the things that he's doing, this is his way of showing love. Because if he didn't
yeah,
love you, he would X, Y, and Z. But it took a while to understand that, because she genuinely believed that men that are not capable of loving women, they just love their themselves and maybe their children, and that's it. And I was
okay,
like,
okay. And I know that to be true, but just hearing you say it like that, I think speaks to how distorted the view has become. And as if it's as simple as understanding the concept that we all have different love languages. Like you might, somebody speaks French and somebody speak, my kids are bilingual and multilingual. They are saying stuff that I don't even understand. Now, does that mean they're insulting me? No, it just means I don't know what they're saying because they're speaking a different language.
yeah. I think the understanding the part and is very important, because I don't like this whole online gender wars, or like,
Yeah.
the generalization, men are this way, women are that way. So like, but having spaces where we can come together and hear different perspectives without name calling and calling the men who are advocating for women, saying that they're simps, and the women who are just balanced, that we called, is it pick me's or pick
Oh,
Misha? It's
yes.
just like,
Yes. Oh my gosh. I've been called that.
yeah, you're pick Misha, and she's like, what? It's just crazy. So, and this is so I've heard this like so many times, where a woman will be speaking, and if a man disagrees with her, oh, it's because you're a man, it's a patriarchy, it's X, Y, Z. Okay, fair enough. If a woman disagrees with her, you're a pick Misha. So it's
Yeah.
like, only someone who agrees with you is in the right.
It's
Everyone
in
else
the
is evil. And that's a problem as well. There's no nuance. And I think even those, that mindset needs to be challenged. And I don't like to, there is like polar opposites with people who are like, you could say, radical feminists on one side and
mm.
hardcore red pill, chauvinistic guys on the other. But there needs to be a balance. But I think sometimes when people are going through issues in their relationship or their marriage, it's easy to kind of,
To
when
veer
you're talking,
towards those
yeah, yeah,
extremes.
and that's something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that as just like a core human thing. Like when we're hurt, when we feel misunderstood, we go towards those constructs that make us feel validated and right. And it's like if somebody, that's why we need the elders, right? To be like, look, if you don't go back home and talk to your husband, to your wife, I don't want to hear that mess.
Wow, it's so funny you said that, because I agree with you. But I think one of the challenges I think a lot of the men are facing is that even if you were to say what you said
Hmm.
publicly,
Hmm.
they would say that you're controlling, like you're.
Mm,
I think what a lot of men also are crying out for is for women to say, not, I don't say check women, but to say things like what you've just said. Because
yeah.
unfortunately, if a man were to say that, it's like you're like, what do they call it now? Coercive control. You're
Oh,
manipulative. There's a
I
lot
gotta
of,
look that up.
and then because a lot of women are more, I was educated in terms of like knowing psychological terms, not
Mm,
that they're
hmm.
trained. So
But
whether
the
it's
term,
narcissism, the terms, and they are thrown around so easily, trauma and things like that. So that's why
yeah,
also men are also treading on eggshells, and they don't even know how to react or interact with women, especially when a woman is, in a state where she's using these certain terms. And that's also
yeah.
what a lot of people are afraid of.
Okay, so what is it like in the current climate with that perspective?
I think a lot of men were treading on eggshells because we don't want to be accused of being misogynistic,
Mhm.
a manipulator, someone who is doing coercive control. And because some of these terms, they're quite ambiguous, especially even how they're defined from person to person, or
Mhm.
or like the whole like narcissism, what constitutes a narcissist. And with when you mentioned like how if there's a couples that are in a dispute, people would maybe say go and speak to the elders to kind of rectify
Yeah.
their affairs. which I fully agree with. I think a lot of men would be reticent to give that advice or to say that because they might be accused of you're trying to manipulate the woman. You're telling her to go to an elder because the way, and
So
again, I think sometimes the way, not all, but some women speak about traditional relationships or people of the past was as if all of the women were docile and were taken advantage of, and they don't want that type of relationship. And I would argue that that wasn't the case. I know there were some abusive relationships, but sometimes I think the way we speak about people of the past, it's as if all of the women didn't have a backbone and they were completely subservient to men.
mhm,
That's
mhm.
the case. And that's why you find sometimes I hear modern women will talk about they don't want to kind of follow that model. So
Uh-huh.
that's why if a man is going to say, you should go and speak to the elders or speak to your mother or an aunt, sometimes he might be accused of you just saying that because you want
Mm,
her to be, controlled and subdued. So that's why again, it's a thing where what some men do, sometimes you can say cleverly, is they will use women to basically say what they want to say.
uh-huh.
And that's when you have some of these female life coaches. Some of them are quite problematic, and some of them are grifters, to be fair. But
Mhm.
they will say some talking points that they know that would resonate with men, and that's why men will use them because they will know
Hey,
that
hey,
men.
this person is
Yeah, so if a woman says it, then there must be some truth in it. It's not just me saying it or a man, because if a man were to say, even if he was, a psychologist or certified therapist or what have you, he's likely to be dismissed as misogynistic, to patriarchy, XYZ.
yeah,
Whereas a woman, it's harder for a woman to dismiss a woman unless they'll accuse her of being a pick
a
me
pick
shot.
me. Yeah.
So it's one of those things. I definitely think we do need to create a space where we can hear both sides, and it's
Mhm.
good if there's like an arbitrator, especially someone who's qualified like yourself, who
Yeah,
can sit and have both parties' perspective and not about favoring one gender over the other, but trying to understand where both parties are coming from, and then try and reconcile any issues that they have. But I just think that we're currently in a space where even I'm sure in people's social media feeds, they're just seeing
the
similar talking points
same.
to maybe what they
Uh-huh.
agree to, and they don't really hear the other side. And what's also interesting is that you find, and I find some social media personalities to be quite problematic because, and it happens both men do it and women do it. Oh, I'm married. Like there was a famous I can't remember her name, but she was going off like a 6-year run telling women you don't need to get married, you don't need to be with a man, promoting singlehood. It's fine
Yeah,
if they want to do that, but she was promoting it as if men are complete trash. And then she just like,
behind the
oh, by the
scene.
way, I'm engaged, and another one.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think it
Uh-huh.
happens and the men will use it and highlight that and say, you see, but the problem is sometimes men will use these figures and say, this is why you can't listen to women. And I think that's wrong.
Okay,
So
okay.
some men will demonize all women. This is you can't listen to women because she was saying she was for women, but look at her. She just said it, but when she got a man, all of a sudden her message changed. But
Yeah,
men do that as well. There are a number of these gurus or red pill grifters who will say, have like multiple women, do X, Y, and Z, treat women like X, Y, Z, or don't marry single mothers. And they're married to a single mother, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or they're married, happily married, but for the impression they'll give to men is that they're womanizers, they're playboys,
yeah,
because that's what sells to men.
yeah.
So both parties, unfortunately, are doing, you know.
It's almost like gangster rap or whatever, and they'll have their kids in private school, but they're talking about shooting up the place and all the drugs they sold, but the life they are living is completely different than what they're selling to people.
Yeah, that's a brilliant knowledge. That's true. I think that with gangster rap, well, most people, I'm assuming,
Mhm.
they're aware that that's entertainment.
Uh-huh,
But
uh-huh.
I think with life coaches now, social media personalities, some of them is for making money, but people
Yeah.
don't realize that. So some of them are grifters, and that's where, because like now the life coach and the red pill guru or the men's coach, they've become like the equivalent of the pastor imam
Ooh,
plus the entertainer. They've got
and it's
like
hard to
they touch on
separate which one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. If you listen carefully, that's why, because people listen to them as you're a spiritual leader, because now a lot of people are not really aligned to like religion or religious figures
Yeah.
as much. So they're like they've got like the power of like religious figures, like an imam or pastor, but also have the charisma of like an entertainer as well. And they
Uh-huh,
can entertain
uh-huh.
you and keep you engaged. And that's why they're so captivating. And that's why, especially ones who are using either religious talking points or medical talking points, like those who claim to be like psychologists
Yeah, and they're
and
saying
them
narcissist,
also,
this is
yeah,
gaslighting and
it's very, very dangerous because like
mhm.
they're misdiagnosing people and they're also causing mistrust. So people feel that because this individual has abused their power, they think that's the case for all medical professionals, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
And that's where it's important to also educate people that no, there are qualified, ethical people, but they don't maybe have the platform that some of these individuals have.
And we
So I
have
feel for some,
ethics, so we can't talk about like I have so many success stories of helping couples come to a different place or helping women come to a different place or even men. But, first of all, not just because I have to, I value my clients' confidentiality and the discretion and what it takes for them to really trust. So we can't go and broadcast. We can talk in generalities
yeah,
and, but we can't say like literally blah, blah, blah. But then those without those ethics, they go because, they'll say so and so contact, they'll name who they've been working
yeah,
with. And it's like, it's
yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy. It's definitely a problem.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm just wondering how, like the next stage, how do we get to the point where people can differentiate between the two? Because
Yeah.
those obviously that are, like yourself are
Mm.
licensed psychologists, and also so you've got wear the two hats. I'm assuming, right? The licensed
Coaching and
psychologist,
uh-huh.
coaching as well, and also a therapist. Even just for the benefit of people listening, especially they might not be familiar
Mm.
with that, can you just first outline the differences between those three hats: the therapist,
Yeah.
the coach?
So, I would kinda put it as 2 hats. That's a great question.
Yeah,
Um, and what I'll come back to is the fact that someone who's really qualified doesn't usually speak in very stark black or white terms. And so the grifters, the people that are lying and trying to get people in a fervor, they speak in absolutes. Men are like this, women are like this. This is right, this is wrong. Whereas trained therapists, psychologists, even coaches are there to really get at the core of the issue. And it's usually not so black or white. It's not, it's nuance, and that's what we're trained to get at. So that's one key difference. If somebody is giving you such a clear answer, like do one, two, three, which is what a lot of these radicals on both sides, we can say the radical feminists or whatever we want to call it, and the radical red pill. It's just like if you cut women off, this. It's so absolute and there's no room for any flexibility. That's usually, it might feel good to hear those things, but it doesn't lead to solutions, in my opinion. But a therapist is more like a general term. And there's different types of therapists. You can be a therapist as a licensed psychologist, as a licensed clinical social worker, as a licensed mental health professional, even as a psychiatrist, a board certified psychiatrist. So it's just like a general term, but it does imply that someone is licensed in one of the key areas of mental health. It's just that there's different approach, licensed psychology has kind of a different focus, social work, psychiatry, we all kind of come from different angles, but the key is years of study, supervised practice, ethical codes, you know, things like that. So the therapist is the general term, but it does imply some sort of training and licensure in one of the branches. And then the focus is usually kind of more, traditional through one of those standard fields, psychology, social work, psychiatry, mental health counseling, and so forth. Coaching is also actually, it's sad that coaching has come under such disrepute or fire from these grifters because coaching, before people have gotten into online coaching, has always been a thing. High performers have always needed someone to help guide them to what they need in terms of mindset, structure, accountability to get to specific goals that they have. And so I will always tell people, look at people who are the top in their field, whether it's sports, anything. They have a coach. They have someone who can see them outside of themselves, help steer them, see what some of their gaps and usually their mindset and where they're trying to go. The problem is it's such a general term. It's like saying a mentor or I don't know, like it's just such a general term and it's not regulated in the same way. So basically, and I've had coaches. I am such a fan of getting help, whether it's a relationship coach, business coach, whatever. And I've worked with people who, because of their life experience, have been able to coach me in certain areas. So it wasn't like I needed to see some kind of license. However, they practiced and walked in integrity. And the same rule applied. They weren't telling me, oh, it's just simple, do X, Y. Even if you think about a personal trainer or like a health coach, they know that usually you're not hitting your health targets. It's not because you don't know, it's because there's something in your mindset or how your lifestyle is set up that's blocking you, right? So every coach that I've worked with has never told me, oh, it's just simple, do X, Y, and Z. Like they've always tried to get at the core of why I'm not doing what I know I should do. So that's a long way to say, like, first of all, therapist should be somebody licensed in one of these areas. A coach can be someone who comes at it from life experience or some sort of kind of more formal certification or training. But the key is, are they practicing integrity? Are they talking? Do they have a method or a process for helping you, not just spouting off talking points? So I don't necessarily believe someone has to be married to give. Well, here's the thing, therapists don't necessarily give advice. We work through our training and our methodology to help you uncover what you're dealing with and what you need. So, therapists who do couples therapy, they have studied relationships, sexuality, couples work. So they're not really coming from a personal perspective. So I don't necessarily think a marriage and family therapist has to be married to be good. But if someone is saying that they're a marriage coach, meaning they're coming from more of their life experience, you best believe I'm looking at their marriage history and their relationship history. So you're not going to sit up there and tell me where you don't have an academic background, a theoretical background, and you don't have a life background, then what is the basis of me listening to you? And I think it's to your point, it's grifting, it's people knowing certain talking points that are going to hit on some people's wounds. I come from a perspective of trauma. You're hitting on people's trauma wounds. So you're saying all the things that are making them feel validated and heard and understood, but you're not really helping them to move past their hurt and their pain. And to your point, then those same people who have been encouraging you to hate men or whatever will be inviting you to their wedding and making an engagement announcement because they themselves don't want to stay in that place, but they don't have the tools to help you get out of it. So the tool that they use is just validating your anger, you being disgruntled, and that is just one big venting session.
Very, very well said.
Yeah.
And can you also help me understand a counselor as well? Is that also a non-protected term like a coach as well?
No, that's more, well, see, also the UK and it kind of a little bit different. But I think counselor is something, I think maybe used a little more in the UK. They kind of use it here, but although we go more towards therapists, but it comes with the venue of therapist. So counselor, therapist, it's implying some sort of training, some sort of licensure, or if not licensed, working under or with someone who is licensed. The key with these fields, and even in the medical field, is the idea that We are not all knowing or and all seeing. We need people to help us. I won't even say hold accountable. Like you can have the best intentions, but have blind spots, which is why you need. I regularly work with colleagues and consultants, people to say, "Hey, this is where I'm stuck," or "Can you help me how to see this?" But somebody who's just so arrogant and thinking you know everything and you're just gonna you're the touch of God, you know, like those are people that you shouldn't, in my opinion, you shouldn't trust. That's not the stance of a counselor or a therapist or someone who's trained in a profession.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm always uncomfortable when people speak in absolutes. There's a second type of category of individuals outside of social media who also, I think, do this as well. Not all, but some.
Uh-huh.
Um, Religious preachers, because religious preachers they have like authority, and
Yes.
many of them, whether imam or a pastor as well, both in the Christian and Muslim tradition, people also go to them as like for therapy or counseling and advice. And many people think that they have all of the answers because they've got, you can say, religious training. People assume they have the answers to fix their marriage or to help them. And I also think that's also quite dangerous as well, especially when people aren't aware of the boundaries or what even the differences, like you outlined, between a therapist and a coach. And then you have someone who is got the veil of religion, and people think when
Yeah.
they speak absolutes, people think not only what this person's saying is their opinion, this is what God wants.
Yeah, that which is even more dangerous, right?
What this, yeah, extremely. And that's also so for a number of, because I have a number of friends who are like imams, and because they've been trained and studied the deen, because they've said that when they come after studying for a number of years, most of the requests that they receive are around relationships. It's
Mm,
not really
that's
about
the number one.
theology. That's
Uh-huh.
the number one thing. Pastoral care is about relationship, how
Yeah.
to get married, how to what you
They
were said in the
uh,
beginning. Marriage counselors, because they've been doing it for a number of years, then they just say, "Oh, I've got the experience, and I've been married for 5, 10, 15 years, so therefore I'm an expert." And then they put themselves forth, and
yeah.
because they have number of people that come to them because of by way of them being the leader of the congregation. So they see themselves as, no, I must know what I'm doing because I have so many people coming to me. I officiate
Yeah.
over so many marriages. People come to me with their issues, and I tell them and give them advice. So naturally, I must be the best person for this job.
And that's that part where you don't have a mirror. You don't have somebody telling you like, "No, just because you've been doing it doesn't mean you're doing it well or you're good at."
Hundred
You're
percent.
giving good advice. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really troubling because I spoke to a couple, like I said, behind the scenes. I just you have to be very careful, especially because you're speaking out from a religious perspective and you're telling people.
So then it brings us back to the point like my interest is intimacy because that's what relationships are about. Why do we want to be in relationship? It's not just the sex or the transaction. Like we want to build something with someone and that is, involves intimacy. It's like it sounds like part of what you're saying is men are more comfortable sometimes with emotional intimacy within themselves. What are the things that make it that facilitate intimacy with men in their relationship? And what are the things that block it? Like where they're like, "No, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna open up or be vulnerable or be like connected to her in that way, even if I'm married." Does that make that's a big
It's a big one. Um, I'm trying to see how I can package this without
Mm.
sounding too harsh, but
Say be real.
I think men bond with other men in terms of emotionally, not obviously
Mhm,
sexually, and they're more able to be more vulnerable with other men
mhm,
because men are more empathetic to other men than women are to men.
mhm, mhm,
And this might sound strange, but I'll try and unpack it. I think generally speaking, men see other men as human beings,
uh-huh,
whereas women do not see men that way. It's a lot of times you're supposed to do X, Y, Z for me, and they don't see the vulnerabilities in men, or they don't really appreciate it. So even if we're to talk about intimacy in the bedroom, even like in terms of, and you see this with sometimes a lot of women dehumanize men in terms of when it comes to the intimacy and sexuality, but they don't realize that.
mm,
And that's why I think men understand that. why men are, believe it or not, even though we can be critical of each other, when a man is in a bad space, and if his friend knows that, he's like more likely to be more compassionate to him. Whereas sometimes the woman doesn't realize that it's only case, especially if she doesn't realize what's wrong with you, because she's frustrated and she's
Yes.
trying to, and that's so this is something that I hear quite a bit, that sometimes women complaining about men, that why is it that men can bond with each other and stuff, and be vulnerable with their male friends as opposed to their female partner. It's because generally speaking, the male friend is not going to criticize him if he does something wrong,
Mhm. Uh-huh.
and that can happen with when you're in a romantic relationship. And I'm not saying that the women are doing it intentionally,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you're you're not in a space or in a place where you want to be criticized. You're opening up about something, and all of a sudden the person isn't internalizing their complaint and thinking it's about them and it's something to do with you.
yeah, yeah,
That happens quite a bit, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. And this is something that men kind of know, and that's why men can have secrets. And I'm not talking about infidelity or anything.
yeah.
We'll share it. A lot of men know more about their male friends than their wives do.
Then their wives know about that same.
Well, no, same
uh,
man, yeah.
yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
men, even if it's like financial issues that he's going through, stresses, because when he's even with his wife or
Mhm.
girlfriend, a lot of men still feel they need to perform. They need
Mm,
to perform masculinity. They need to show up. They need to be this alpha male. They need to be this provider because they don't want to be seen as less than, because she might look at him a certain way, or her tongue might say certain things that he might not be able to recover from.
yeah, yeah,
Reality.
and
So
that
that's
can.
why
Uh-huh.
that's why he feels he might need to protect. And again, it's not in a malicious way.
Yeah,
He's like needs to protect these parts, these insecurities from her, and then maybe try and deal with it himself, or he speak to his boys and try and find a solution. And that's
yeah,
something that again, it's not. I'm not saying it's the women's fault, but this is just sometimes how men, how they view things. That she'll blow off, she'll go mad if I did it. So it's like, I'd rather not tell her. Let me
let
just
me
try and deal with it myself.
I
I'll speak to my
uh-huh.
boys, and yeah, it's quite a difficult one, because I think men don't mind their female partner, their wife, being vulnerable with them, but not a lot of men are comfortable to really be vulnerable with their wife.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Really vulnerable.
yeah. I think it's so important to have it be said. Um, what then if a woman is in a relationship and she hears this, she understands, okay, this is the issue. What can she do to facilitate that or show that it's safe to open up and be vulnerable and that that's something that she would value?
Do what she would expect the man to do for her. Listen without trying to give solutions.
Uh-huh.
Listen without complaining. Listen without internalizing, making it about yourself.
Mhm.
It can be very difficult. Honestly, it can be very difficult. But the same advice or same expectation, I think, that a woman would expect from a man, also you have to do the same. And it
Mhm.
can be quite difficult,
Yeah.
because, but I think the difference is that I think men can appreciate or see women in different forms. Whereas I think in the men's mind, that the woman has to see him in one way. He has to be
Mask like
upright. He has to be masculine.
uh-huh.
Yeah, that's why there's a lot of performing masculinity. There's a
Okay.
lot of that. Whereas it doesn't, like, make even like the whole concept of I was watching um they were talking about, how do they phrase it? They said like how, if a man, they were talking about sexuality, that if a woman has had a past with other women, a man
Uh-huh.
would accept her past, like just say she's no more that way, like interested in other women. But if a man was to do something homosexual with another
They're
man,
like
99, so
it's
they're
like
just talking
you
about how,
uh,
even
uh,
yeah, that female bisexuality is accepted across the board, but
mhm.
male bisexuality is accepted. They just say no, you're either gay or not. Or if you're
Two
so it
binary.
was just
Uh-huh.
interesting. But
Uh-huh.
yeah. So men is binary, whereas women, there's flexibility and fluidity in that. And when I saw that, I've actually, I never thought about that, but that's actually quite true for a number of people that I've
Yeah.
spoken to. That
Yeah.
a man could get with a woman that's kissed a girl, so to speak. But if a man said that he's had a relationship with another man, I don't know many straight women that would be comfortable with that. And
Mm.
that's not to say that's anything wrong with that. Just
Y
yeah. So even how we view masculinity and femininity, I think oftentimes you can say femininity is quite can be quite fluid. It's not just
Uh-huh.
not even as individual, whereas masculinity is like straight, rigid. It's just one way kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So what do men feel are the standards or pressures of masculinity that they have to uphold? It sounds like you said providing, like
Providing like financially, a lot of pressure on the provider to be the leader, the one that makes decisions,
Mhm,
the one that's in control, to be the protector as well, because that's also different. Because obviously the provider providing financially, emotionally,
mhm,
what should be, but also protecting the woman from harm. And
mm,
especially if you're with someone who can bring you harm or cause harm without her realizing it, that's also an issue. So a lot of men, they're worried, or they may be worried by what their wife or partner may say, because that can bring harm and he has to protect her. So if
yeah,
she's running her mouth to other people, like to men, he has to obviously be cognizant of that, because that can have, obviously he has to protect her, so that can cause him harm. So these are things that men naturally are more aware of. There
yeah,
are other things. Some men, they go into, I think, can be quite controlling in the sense of they're worried about the way their wife may dress in public, because they're thinking it can bring attention that he now has to defend
protect
her. So sometimes
the
women don't realize where he's coming from when he can become across quite protective. Not
mhm,
that he just doesn't want her to dress a certain way. He's also thinking about how it might be viewed by other men, and then therefore he has to get involved in an action. You know, things like that, even
yeah,
where she. But it's also understanding where he's coming from. Again, she could disagree with him, and obviously they can come to a
mhm,
um, solution to the, but it's just also understanding it's not always him being a controlling massage. It's him being a protector, and
yeah,
him thinking to protect you from harm that can come your way that you may not see. And even if there is harm that's coming towards you, as your man, I'm gonna have to protect you. So now I'm thinking about myself as well.
I gotta
So
put
things like,
myself in danger.
yeah. But I would say there are some characteristics of masculinity that I think women appreciate that men don't, which is
Mm,
also.
what are some
So
mhm,
I think what you mentioned earlier about integrity. I know
uh,
you speak about it in the sense of as a as a coach, but also I think for a man as well, integrity, and also someone who can help her and make her feel safe. I think that's
mm,
something that, especially emotionally, I don't think that's something that as men we realize or really appreciate, because
yeah,
there's so much emphasis on being a provider financially. Very little emphasis is placed on, are you cultivating a safe space where she feels comfortable with you or being in your presence, and are you a man of integrity? So that's why a lot of men, they feel that as long as I've got money, I can throw money and it will resolve the problem. So even if there's infidelity, they think money will resolve it, and that's not the case. Or like where, when there's a breach of trust. And I think it's quite interesting, because men understand loyalty when it comes to with other men, but with their female partner, it's like no, money can resolve that.
oh, but
It's
they know with their boys, it can't money can't resolve a friendship issue.
You can't. Even
Uh,
with your barber, man, you can't resolve it. Even with your barber, man, so they know, so they know and understand what loyalty is. They know what faithfulness is. They know it's a virtue. They know it's important. They know that once trust is broken, it's very difficult to repair. They understand that, right? But when it comes to their partner, for whatever reason, it's like they think it's not so important, because money in their eyes can help her
yeah,
forget. And it's like,
yeah,
maybe because of past relationships where there's been a breach in trust, or there's been infidelity, and then they've got back together. He's thinking that, okay, she's forgotten about it and she's okay. She's accepted it because,
yeah,
or a new car, or has bought X, Y. And that's what men say amongst us sometimes, that
mhm,
you can take her on holiday, she'll forget about it, it's fine.
yeah,
And that's also a problem, because integrity is one trait that people of all religions, ethnicities,
yeah,
everyone appreciates and acknowledges. That's something that people respect. And if there's no integrity, if you don't see as someone that's a person of integrity, someone that's trustworthy, someone who's basically a liar, no one really respects that
yeah,
individual. For
yeah.
whatever reason, we have a blind spot as men.
So for some reason, there's a blind spot that men may have, some men have around seeing that is probably one of the most attractive traits in a man for a woman, that integrity. That and because when you have integrity, you quote unquote stand 10 toes down. You will protect because it's like you're coming from an even stronger place that's not like fly by night. You know what I mean? And that feels incredibly secure and safe. When you see I love watching like the mafia movies, gangster movies. Like you're not gonna lie and rat me out. Like there's a certain standard of integrity. So yeah, it would make sense that would be something very attractive, a quality that men would have that would be really attractive to women. So where has the breakdown happened? We talked about like kind of the old day, like how it was traditional relationships in different cultures and things like that. Because it seems like women are not understanding men, men are not understanding women. Did we miss something in educating? Like, it used to be a time where a wedding wasn't just a ceremony, but there was a whole period of preparation. And as someone who's just traveled around the world, lived different places, and really when I go somewhere, I study and I love going to weddings. I love talking about relationships with people in different societies. And I feel like there was part of leading up to marriage, a lifelong commitment or long-term commitment, where there was some sort of training where it's like, okay, the aunties or the whatever and the uncles, but not toxic, but where you would get some training on, okay, this is what you need to understand about male nature. This is what you need to understand about female nature. Has there been a breakdown or what has happened that we seem to now be so clueless about each other?
There's definitely been a breakdown. I think on the community level as well, and I look at different cultures and countries that I've traveled to and visited. I think one of the problems, especially in the age that we're living in now, the digital age, is that people are living in silos, especially amongst our own genders, and there isn't much interaction with the opposite sex or even with elders in our community because we're all like in our own bubbles. And if you're just amongst your own peer group of men talking amongst men or socializing with other men, and likewise women doing the same, you're not seeing the other side, so to speak, as in women are not seeing men and
Yeah.
men are not seeing women as human beings. We're seeing them as the enemy, which is a
Mhm.
problem.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
even if you've got your partner, or they're okay, but the rest are their problem. So I hear there's even a lot that there are men that are like, okay, my wife is okay, my sister and my mum and
Yeah.
daughters, whatever, they're fine, but the others, they're all, it's still that problem. They're the enemy. And likewise, I hear this from women that my husband is fine and my dad and I was raised, but the rest of them, and again, that's problematic.
Yeah,
It's still
yeah.
problematic. So it's like creating this us versus them mentality.
So, it's like we're not seeing each other as human.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what I mean, not only humans and friends as well,
Mhm.
because you are living in a society where you're interacting with people of different ages as well. You'll see, you appreciate, not, you won't see people, it's not black and white. You're not going to say all people over the age of X, Y, Z are like this, all women are like this, all men are like this, because you see the grays,
Yeah.
because you know people of, different ages. And I'm just thinking, even people who, because a couple of my cousins, they homeschool their children,
Mm.
and the way they interact, even from when they were like between 8 and 12, was very mature because of interacting with people of different ages. Whereas when
Yeah.
you are schooling, I went to obviously state schooling, just in your own age, it kind of restricts you because you're only talking to people within your own age group.
Yeah, yeah.
Even that maturity that I saw with my cousin's children from relatively young ages, because they were exposed to adults from a really young age and they were treated like a human being. It wasn't, we're the adults, you're a child. Thought the
They're
way they saw the world,
integrated. Uh-huh.
yeah, way completely different. So that's also one of the things that I've noticed when I look at like the whole, I don't want to say gender wars, but the gender
Yeah,
divide between men and women, is that we are not interacting with each other as human beings. And again,
yeah,
it shouldn't be you're only going to interact with your family members of the opposite gender
yeah.
or your other half. Other than that, they're all evil or they're all threats. So that's a problem. There should be,
Yeah,
there should be mutual respect and trust. And like that's I'm not really seeing that as much. Whereas I think
yeah.
in a or in more other societies that are not so exposed to the digital age, there is
Mhm.
more interaction between the genders and of different ages as well.
And different all different, yeah. And I'm wondering as you're talking, I'm thinking about, like, the emergence of a level of conservatism, like, if we're talking just Islamic conservatism that
That's
is
a good
that is, like, maybe devoid it's cutting you off from culture, and then having a strict interpretation of gender interaction, so it's like, well, how would you even learn, you know what I'm saying? Like, to discern different things because it's so restricted.
point. Yeah, and that's a big problem. And that's something that I've also been trying to address because some people, because they think that's what the religion teaches, that's
Mhm.
why it's also harder to, because people think this is what God wants, and this is how it was done in the past during the time of the prophet, peace be upon him, because that's what they've been told, not
Yeah.
realizing that it's someone's interpretation that they're projecting onto others, like, and that's something, what is also really disheartening for me is that a number of people that are preaching this really ultra conservative message and really strict gender divide, they don't practice it themselves. That's what really
Same.
irritates me. I'm not getting
Yeah.
behind the scenes. That's
Yeah.
what really, also because when you are like a religious leader or speaker,
Mhm.
you've got more leeway because people can come to you of the gender
Yes.
example. So you can, you see the differences in different cultures, but you're not going to tell your community that you're just going to preach this very ultra conservative.
Yeah.
It's also to control people. That's the reason why people do it.
Yeah.
But just for the people on the ground, like you said, how, especially those who are not married and they're looking to find someone, how are you going to find someone when you've got this very rigid, people talking about like you can only have like a marriage meeting, like a business meeting. You have a 25-minute conversation. You only look up once to see her face after that. It's just ridiculous. But because they're
How
doing this out of religious sincerity, it's very difficult to, because they think this is what God wants. And that's why
Yeah.
religion can be obviously very helpful, but also if it's misinterpreted, it can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a problem. And then what happens is that people go through burnout and they realize this is just not, I can't deal with this anymore. Then they just think all religion is just bad. I can't,
And
it's
then they
just,
go the other extreme.
then go up extreme.
Yeah.
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 That's just the
Yeah.
problem.
It's like we see that with eating disorders, people will go from binging and overindulging. Well, it starts with like restricting, sacrificing, I'm only eating salads, and nobody can do that. So then you go the other extreme, and it's like all you could eat every day, fast food. And it's like you're going back and forth. Again, I think that's the theme that I'm hearing, even in what you're
Yes.
saying. It's like being so extreme, but and we're not really even Islam. It's a path of moderation and balance, and so I don't think we're even designed to be, like, so extreme like this, how we're living in some ways.
And I love the example you gave. And also, I'm just wondering this because there'll be people who, like the example you gave with the binge eating.
Mhm.
For example, someone who's come from a background where they've come from one extreme to the other, then that person, what I find is that if they see someone and they maybe like eating a lot, they'll put forth their projection to that individual. No, don't do this because this is going to happen to you. This
Yeah.
is quite dangerous. So that person might be having a cheat day, so to speak, or
Uh-huh.
they know how moderate themselves,
Listen
but they
up.
will think, no, you are going to, you're going to be addicted, or this is what's going to happen to you. So follow what I did. And it's just like, we it doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
And I find
yeah.
in relation to, and also I want to get your thoughts on this if you
Mm.
don't mind. When people talk about like addiction, because I intentionally just do not use that word a lot, like, especially
Uh-huh.
in relation to like sex addiction and things like that, because people often weaponize that term, like to say if
Yeah.
someone has a problematic use of pornography or infidelity, they're labeled an addict, and this is what they need to do to
Mhm.
come over and then go through this counseling session. What advice would you give to someone who's struggling with, maybe you could say, is excessive watching? I mean, do you think it's helpful to use the term like an addict? Because I get that quite a lot where women will say,
Yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
he's a sex addict or he's a porn addict." So I'm like, well, first, how do you know he's an addict? Are you?
yeah,
So I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts when calling
yeah.
people addicts and
I'm
stuff?
like what you said. I'm very conservative with those things. I was thinking about this yesterday, even with this whole thing. He or she is a narcissist. Now, we can say someone
Mm,
has exhibited narcissistic traits, which a lot of us do, all of us, right? In some ways, some more than others. But these labels without being a person who has the background to diagnose like that, I would be very careful with just labeling someone. And when we say an addict or someone who's addicted, it implies a level of dependence or abuse. I mean, it's a whole clinical thing. Now, it's okay. We can say, hey, the way you're interacting with food or pornography or whatever, it's causing problems for you. Like, that's fine. But I am not in favor of just us throwing these diagnoses and clinical labels around because it's not help. What does it do? It just makes, in my opinion, it makes people feel self-righteous. I've been able to
Mm.
tell you you're addicted to this and this, but is that even helping the person? When have you heard somebody been referred to as some kind of addict and then they're like, "Oh, you know what? You're right. I'm going to stop that right." Thank you. I
Literally.
didn't know. Thank you so much. Like again, back to I'm such a fan of trying to understand what influences behavior change, human behavior, what drives us to behaviors and what drives us to change. And it's usually not just being told something. It's usually not just getting a label. Like those things might help some people sometimes, but it's not leading to change. So yeah, I'm with you. Like if someone is noticing,
I think you answered it, but it was just a case of, do you think it's helpful? Because I see it a lot, especially even like in religious circles,
yeah,
everything is addiction and how to, maybe it's me being a bit cynical, because I
yeah,
think I'm also seeing it as, oh, this person, there's high
it's like
rates of
it.
addiction. Try my course, come to
Yeah,
my counseling. So I mean, so me,
yeah,
I don't, that's because it's very easy to. So this is a problem, but I've got the solution. And if you're not trained, you have to be very careful for that. Number one, you might be potentially misdiagnosing a problem, and then okay, you're given a solution, but it makes sense again from a business perspective, or like the same way you diagnose something, or you you create a problem and then you make a solution, or you find a solution. And I don't know if people are doing this intentionally, or they don't realize. And for me, I just think it's discrediting actual clinicians, medical professionals, because there's a whole process
yeah,
even when you know someone, like call someone a narcissist, like you said, or say they're an addict, because it's not something that a layperson, not someone who hasn't been
yeah.
trained, we shouldn't be using terms. Yeah.
And I also think it doesn't net you like even when I'm working with couples, I'm asking them, what is your desired outcome? Let's look at if how you're doing it is
Mm.
leading to that. So if you have someone you love, like what is your desired outcome? That they have some awareness, that they be open to change. So slapping a label on them or is not necessarily going to lead to that outcome. And what do you want to get out of putting these labels? Now, like you said, there's some people who want to get you buy my course, you do this, this, and this. But for the people who are the consumers of those things, you have to ask yourself, what comes out of this label? Now, sometimes a label will help you to see things. Like there are people who've experienced narcissistic abuse. That's a real thing. But those usually aren't the people yelling it, right? They have to be shown, like, finally, when they get a clinician or somebody, whoever, that says, wait a minute, this is abuse. You're not supposed to go through this. That can be very helpful as a first step. But when it's just us all over society, just throwing these things around, I'm just asking myself, what is the desired outcome? And is this really leading to it? When I'm working with a woman who's frustrated with her husband, and I'm asking, what have you been doing? Well, I keep telling him, and I'm like, what is your desired outcome? How is this getting you to that? What I understand is men don't typically respond to nagging. And even when I work with,
Yeah.
if I'm working with a couple, I'll ask the man, well, what is your desired outcome? I want her to respect me. Okay. Women's respect doesn't come through force. That's typically like you're trying to lay down the gauntlet and, all this stuff. That's typically not how it happens. So that's how I think about everything. I'm like thinking ahead. What is the result the person is looking for? And is this method going to get us there? And yeah, I personally think all of these labels, if I hear another not self diagnose, if I hear another person diagnose their ex as a narcissist, just because they broke up with you, I'm going to pull my hair out. Like, and it's not to say that that's can't be. There are bunches of narcissists around, but not everybody. And sometimes you got to turn the mirror on yourself. And if you have been with all these narcissists, again, what's the pattern here? Why do you keep, are you falling for superficial charm? Are you just looking, are you overlooking the integrity part and you're just going for the money? It's like, with the men, I don't know if you're familiar with like the old school R&B, but there was a song, You Can't Trust a Big Butt and a Smile. So that
Yes.
was poison, right? It's the same with women. Like you can't just trust a fast car and wads of money. Okay, you that person has provision, but what about the integrity? What about all of these his sensitivity? Can he both provide and protect but also be emotionally safe for you? So those are some of the things that I'm like thinking like when these people are diagnosing everybody as some kind of addict or narcissist or whatever.
Do you do I'm not sure if I mentioned this before,
Mm.
but like do you do like workshops for religious leaders on this?
Um,
Because
I
they, you hear people on the ground, but also you do hear it from imams and sheikhs like a
yeah,
lot as well. And I'm just wondering
yeah,
if
yeah.
like what you're saying, and I will share it like this when it comes out to some that I know, they need to be educated on this as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, I do. Yeah, I have and I do and I help to kind of I understand like when you're using a term generally, like people will say we're in an age of narcissism, which I get. Yeah, I understand using it generally like that. But then when you're like telling someone, I'm so protective of people not destroying their own relationships. So when you're sitting with someone in a relationship and they're having problems and you're feeding them information that's making them not make a choice that's best for them, but just like feeding their traumas and dramas. To answer your question, yes, I have worked with people like you got to be careful with these terms, and I've done it with religious leaders too.
What I'm trying to do is connect like religious leaders as well with trained professionals who haven't got expertise, so they can learn from those who actually know,
Yeah,
because they have more scope in terms of dealing with these issues, and people go to them as authority. And when really and truly, I think with a lot of these like cases, they can refer them to professionals, not take
yeah.
them on themselves, like because a lot of them they haven't got the qualifications to kind of deal with these issues.
Because like we go to our religious leaders for counsel and for solace and for support. Like we totally 100% respect and value, the guidance. It's just as when it's coming to certain things. It's almost like medical, like that if you have stomach problems, who do you see? You see a gastroenterologist or whatever. If you have heart problems, like go to the ones who kind of studied it a little bit and know what they're
Exactly.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, Habib, like each time we do this, I'm like, all right, we got to do it again. We got to do it again. But I do want to, I'm really appreciative of um so much of your observation and your insights. And I like to end my episodes with kind of like it's like a surprise rapid fire. So I'm going to throw some statements at you and you could tell me agree, disagree, or maybe it's a little more nuanced, not to box you in.
Yeah.
So these are things that you hear a lot. The first one is men are intimidated by successful women. Agree or disagree? Or,
Disagree. No,
okay.
I mean, I intimidated.
Men are
Oh,
intimidated by successful women.
oh, sorry, intimidated. Agreed. Before I said disagree, now I'll say agree.
Okay. Why? They are?
Because why now or why now? Why do I agree with it? Because from what I've seen, I would say disagree because I wasn't someone that was intimidated by a woman who's successful, got more money than
Mm-hmm.
myself. But I can't look at myself and think that's the case for most men. But a lot of men that I do come across, they are intimidated by women's achievements, and that's why they want to. I've heard some men say they want a woman who's uneducated, who doesn't know much, because
Mm.
it's easier for them to mold. And
Yeah.
that shocked me, surprised me because that's not the way I think. But I know a number of men think like that. So that's
Yeah.
why I have to agree with that. Not just looking from my perspective, but
Yeah.
what I've seen, and not only in this country, when I recently went to Nigeria, I heard similar sentiment in other countries as well. And it's a number of men have said that. Like they don't
Yeah.
want a woman who makes more money than them or is more educated than them because but they will use it like she won't listen, but it's really because they don't have the
The
capability to reason
uh
with her.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just like in the essential, I agree. Unfortunately, that's the case.
Okay.
I don't think it should be the case, but
But
I
it
would say
is.
that is the case.
So unfortunately, there is some truth to that from your perspective. Okay.
There's a lot of truth to that.
Okay, a lot of truth. Okay. Submission is necessary for long-term relationships between men and women. Basically, women have to be submissive.
Disagree.
Okay. Did you want to say you were kind of like,
You don't have to be. It's not. I'm not submissive.
or well, let me say
There should
this.
be understanding.
Uh,
There should be understanding.
mm-hmm,
Again, it's
mm-hmm,
some people. I mean, if there's an understanding, and I don't this idea that a woman has to be completely submissive to her husband,
mm-hmm.
maybe because again, from my experience and what I've seen, people that's been married much longer than myself, my
Mm,
parents and elders, the women are not all like submissive, but they're in happy relationships.
yeah,
So that's why this model that people present, it might work in certain cultures, that's fine. But I know in many other cultures, especially West African cultures, where the women aren't like completely submissive, but the men still respect them and they're still in happy relationships. So that's why I wouldn't fully agree that like you have to be submissive. And also because submissive has in this for some people it's got negative connotations. And also what do you mean by submissive?
yes, yes. Okay. You made me think of an anecdote when my husband and I were out and we were at this restaurant and it's run by this lady, like total, it was a West African restaurant, total boss, like how she runs her restaurant, top tier. And I was like, yeah, I love how she runs her restaurant. He was like, yeah, she's a great businesswoman. He said, but you know what? When she's at home with her husband, they each understand their role. And
Yes.
yeah. So what I took from that is you got to read the room. So when you're going into your relationship, you're not Miss Boss Lady, businesswoman. You understand. Like, I think that's what you said earlier. It's like understanding.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. And women overthink themselves out of love. How could you?
100% agree.
That was without hesitation. Okay, tell me.
Yeah, yeah, it's very unfortunate, but I think that's very true.
Uh-huh.
I think women have I don't know. Yeah, the overthinking thing is good that women think a lot in many cases, but I think sometimes women can think too much and
Yeah.
overthinking out of love. I think what the sentence you said, I don't think I need to add to it. I think it's
Okay.
self-explanatory.
All right.
If you're
Wow.
overthinking about it, then that's a problem.
Yes, yes. I saw a meme where it was a guy, it's something you said earlier reminded me. He's looking at his phone, but he's like looking at the soccer scores or stats or whatever, but she can't see. And her the bubble in her head is like, who is she? Who is he texting? Like, oh my gosh, why is he so into that? But it's like, yeah, thinking a little bit too much sometimes. Hobbies, I think you have to agree to be a regular on the Secret Formula of Femininity podcast because we certainly need the male perspective and male understanding and just coming together. So I think this will be a great place for us to pick up when you come back. Like I'm all about us getting down to the skills that we need. I think we should all be tired of the talking points, the silos, you know, the gender wars. It's like no matter what, we're humans. We need the attachment and connection. We're gonna deal with each other. So why don't we just do it in a way that's a little healthier than what we're doing? Because like you said, these same people will go and be online talking and riling up this and that, and then the next thing you know, they're getting married. So we should all want that for each other.
definitely.
Yes. Thank you so much again, Habib. How can people reach you, follow you? What you have he has several books, but what's the best place for people to find out what's coming up for you?
Probably Instagram if you're not easily offended.
Mhm.
Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. Um, yeah, that's where you can catch me. But no,
Okay.
thank you very much, Dr. Nicole. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I don't actually like doing a lot of podcasts, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. I do appreciate and value your work. That's why I'm happy to, that they invited me again and to come on. But usually I'm just one and done, if I'm going to be completely honest with
Okay,
you.
all
Or
right. He's like, I'm not committing.
but no, 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 no. But I
Uh,
actually appreciate your work. I think it's
yeah.
important, especially as a man, as a black man, as a Muslim man, to help amplify the voices of people that we respect, especially our women folk. So
Mm,
that's why I'm happy to collaborate and help people know that we do have qualified people within our community that can help resolve some of these issues. So that's why also why I wanted to come and speak to you, so people can know that there are certified life coaches, also a clinical psychologist,
yeah.
also a clinical therapist, but you've got all the
Yes.
accolades with a PhD, that people can realize that, that we don't have, I mean, we do have, you know, individuals like yourself. Because that's one of
Yeah.
my frustrations when people say we don't have,
Yeah.
qualified people. It's like, no, you don't know them. There's a big
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. It lets me know that what I'm doing matters because we all have doubts sometimes, like, oh gosh, do I keep going? But there's something in me, I'll never stop. And I want to amplify the voices of reasonable, well informed, educated people. So thank you so much. And to those of you joining, again, thank you so much for coming along on this journey, 100 episodes. This was no easy feat, but we are just getting started. Make sure you hit subscribe, you share this episode with the women and the men in your life who need to hear it and who are invested in us really connecting. We have a lot of other special kind of throwback episodes and clips that are going to be I'm going to be sharing this week just to celebrate coming this far and where we're headed with the podcast and just with the movement towards healthy relationships, healthy boundaries, healthy femininity and masculinity. So again, thank you so much and I will see you in the next episode. I'm Dr. Nicole.